It's supposed to start at 3.
Okay, so I guess we get started. My name is Josh Barron. I'm the Senior Academic Technology Officer at Marist College. I've been on Sakai board and the Apereo board for a number of years, and actively teaching the learning community. My co-presenter, who's over there, is Dr. Chuck. And I'm just going to assume introduction, Dr. Chuck. A faculty member at the University of Michigan, long site. Anything else? Coursera? IMS. And I personally, my goal for this summer is to learn Python. So we'll see if I make it. Anyway, so the session today is, I'm kind of going to break this into 3 parts. I'm going to speak hopefully for just about 15 minutes from a bit of a teaching and learning perspective on at least the thoughts I have on the future of the learning management system. I'm going to make a strong kind of note up front that a lot of the things I speak about are not my original ideas. These come from a lot of people in our community and outside, like Feldstein and others, MIT Media Labs and so forth. So I haven't given them enough credit as I go through this. I want to make sure I set that up front. I'll turn it over to Dr. Chuck, who's going to talk a little bit about the future of the LMS from an technology innovation perspective. And I will admit that Dr. Chuck and I have not really communicated too much yet and synced up, so we'll see to what extent the teaching, learning, and technology vision might actually converge or diverge. And then we really want to spend about 15 minutes taking not just questions, but really having a dialogue with folks who came to the session and hear from you about your ideas, thoughts for the future, and also thinking about the Apereo community begin to kind of execute on a future along these lines. So for the past 15, 20 years or so, the LMS market has really been focused on this kind of monolithic LMS model. Idea being that we'll build out a whole suite of tools, teaching and learning tools, that will meet the needs of all faculty members from all disciplines. The question I think a lot of people may ask, including myself, is this kind of monolithic LMS model necessarily going to be the future model going forward 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? Now, I think it's important for us to kind of pause and recognize that this has been a pretty successful model. The monolithic LMS has provided us with an enterprise-level system that we can run at scale, safely, securely, and support really efficiently. I think that's actually been really significant in higher education in general, in terms of facilitating things like distance education, which 15 years ago was not the mainstream thing it is today. In fact, I find it quite interesting that now I have to talk about traditional distance education as opposed to the new thing like MOOCs, which has also been driven by this technology to some extent, as well as things like OER and OpenCourseWare. And today, I think almost everybody, I wanted to actually raise your hand and say that the learning management system is a traditional business critical system on your campus. I don't know if that would be the case if we hadn't created the monolithic LMSs. I think Sakai is right there in the mix in terms of this kind of monolithic LMS approach, is showing the success of that model, as well as driving a lot of innovation in the monolithic LMS model in terms of open source development and open standards. So again, I don't want somebody counting off of we made a huge mistake the last 20 years doing this monolithic LMS thing. I think it's a little bit more about is it the right thing moving forward for the next 20 years or so. So I think in terms of why I've started to think about maybe there is a different model that might be important for us to be considering, I'm not so sure monolithic results in a lot of creativity. The reason for this is that I think as we move towards a monolithic LMS, we've generally moved towards a lot of generalization and standardization of the teaching and learning tools that we're providing to our instructors. And it makes a lot of sense to do that. A one-size-fits-all solution generally is pretty easy to deploy, or relatively easy, not all that, but relatively easy to deploy, support, and maintain. So, there's good reason to kind of want to have the standardization and generalization and capabilities of learning technology. So it's pretty good for efficiency, maybe not so good for supporting creativity among our instructors and our learners, I should say. I think it's good. And I think, to me, that's important, because innovative teaching really requires a lot of creativity. So I'll do a little thought experiment here for a second and kind of prove the point a bit. So think about the most powerful learning experience, formal learning experience you have as a student. So think for a second, probably something immediately pops to your mind. Now, was that a kind of cookie cutter, classic 1 hour, 15-minute lecture you attended? Raise your hand. Or was that something an instructor did that was quite different than the norm, something creative and pretty radical that happened in the classroom? A few people had coffee before the session. So the point being is that I think for most of us, creativity in the classroom results in powerful learning experience. Personally, as someone who occasionally teaches when I have a little bit of time and really enjoys doing that, I find that standardization tends to make teaching just not so much fun. So a visual example of this. So here are a bunch of pictures of different classrooms, different teaching styles, different subject matters. The upper left is kind of a classic physics lecture. Right is a classic set of small group discussions happening in the classroom. Chemistry lab, art history, those folks look like they've gone on a field trip, they've left the classroom, dance class on the left, and so forth. Now I'm going to pull up what these classes look like in the Sakai implementation of marriage called Dialog. Something's different there, right? Some creativity has kind of left the space a bit. Now, our faculty love Sakai. It's particularly highly rated. We're excited about moving on to Sakai 10 and so forth shortly. So this is not to me the critical of what we have today, but it has started dawning on me that there's an element of creativity that's kind of changed as we move into the online space from the face-to-face space. So that might beg the question, how can we allow for greater creativity using things like learning management systems? I personally started to feel that a big part of this is trying to give freedom back to faculty and learners to create their own learning management system. Now, I'm not talking about getting them all ramped up in Java so they can create their own grade books. That's not probably too realistic or something they would want to do. But I'm really getting fascinated with this concept of tinkerability. Again, not my term. There's a reference down there to an article out of MIT Media Lab, which I just gives me background. It says, please do not distribute publicly. Yes, it did. That's sometimes I assume that's okay. So if you want more background on the concept of tinkerability, read that article. But the idea is there's all these maker labs popping up. People are starting to tinker and explore things with technology in a way that wasn't possible or often done before. I think in great sense because it was too complicated for most people to start tinkering with these things. 3D printer might be a good example of now that we have that technology that's easy enough to press some buttons and hit print and all of a sudden your 3D thing pops out, whereas 10 years ago I think that was still technically possible. There were systems that were doing that, but they were too expensive to use. Now that we have that at a commercial level where people can use it pretty easily, it's exploding all over the place. So what if we could allow any user, whether that's Dr. Chuck, who can develop something like LTI and mash up things in LMS quite easily because he's technically able to do that, or a humanities faculty member who's never done any kind of technical whatsoever besides maybe a PowerPoint slide. What if they could create their own learning app, something that they could then build, deploy, share, mix with other people? And this is a totally different concept, but something that's easy enough for everybody to use every day and not have to go through training, I think, is not really out there. And I should mention that, to me, a learning app is really the mashup between learning objects, and content, and functionality. Something that allows people to interact and experience that content is kind of, in my mind, what a learning app represents. And then to give you a bit more of a concrete example, think of Google Maps and their API. So Google spent a lot of money, a lot of time creating Google Maps. I personally find it to be totally awesome, and you can look around all around the world, see every street, every building these days. It's a great set of content in a sense. They then decided to open up their API so anybody could mash up whatever they wanted on that Google map. And today we have over 1 million apps and websites that use that API to mash that kind of stuff up. Now, I know Google has a lot of resources, but I don't think they could have ever created 1 million apps themselves. And even if they had the money to do that, they certainly don't know what million variations you could possibly want around the world with every different subject matter and person out there. So it really could only be achieved once they made it easy enough for people to mash up whatever they wanted onto a Google map. Now, I think a lot of users are already starting to kind of move in this direction. At least at Maris, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I was in a mode of telling faculty members, no, you can't use that. That's a violation of FERPA. So you got to use the stuff here in the LMS. That's just not viable once today. They're going out and doing this fashion and using these external content themselves. I see Patrick Masson back there. I know he's talked about how faculty members are using stuff off the web more and more than they use in the LMS. So we kind of need to catch up, or we'll kind of be left behind. So a little bit more concrete here, which actually was my little aha moment this year. Some of you may have seen the presentations that took place at the conference around this fashion online learning domain stuff that we did with our fashion department using Sakai LAB. But one of the side things that happened during that project was the students found an app that allowed them to start posting street trends that they were noticing around the world onto a Google map. And so that started me thinking about this model, where the instructor might have something like a learning map builder, very, again, easy to use, or a really awesome user experience, and also something that really removes a lot of the technical complexity for them to do that. But be able to set up something so students are submitting to an assignment, let's say, pictures and descriptions of street trends that's automatically being delivered out to a Google map. Now I know a lot of you are probably thinking, oh yeah, I can do that right now in a second. But I'm talking about every faculty, every discipline will be able to do that pretty easily. And then of course the students can come in, maybe we embed that app into something like lessons or some future version of lessons, and are able to plot this stuff in this map. I'll actually pull up the actual map. On my screen, but not yours. So here's the actual map that the students created. And these are fashion trends that we're literally finding around the world. Some of these are actually from the conference. So they were observing trends here at the conference, and this is part of a formal actual academic activity that happens in fashion all the time, where they observe trends happening on the street. They actually use those big trends in fashion. Like here, actually, they want a picture. Check this out. They didn't believe me about something. So anyway, so just to give an example of this kind of thing is what faculty and learners are really wanting to do, but there's a barrier still to letting them be creative in this way with technology, much like they're creative in the classroom using things that are easier for them. Okay. So So a few other things, and I'll then kind of wrap up, that I think will also be important in the future. I think highly personalized learning, particularly through the use of analytics, is quite critical. Things like academic early alert systems, adaptive learning systems, cognitive tutoring. Personally believe that cognitive tutors are going to get better at teaching basic core subjects like algebra than human beings are right now, and I think that's going to happen in just in the next 3 to 5 years. So I think learning management systems, or maybe it will be called something else in the future, are going to need that ability to have that kind of highly personalized experience for the learner. Probably, I almost left this bullet off because I think everybody here who's worked with Sakai has experienced this enough to know how important it is, but a delightful user experience. A user experience that leads people wanting to come back and use that system over and over again and more. I think it's going to be really important, as well as customizing that user experience so that the user experience is something that meets my needs as our history faculty member that might look a little bit different or totally different from the user interface and needs of somebody else in a different setting. And I should say, if anybody here does support is probably thinking my world is ending from the description Josh is sharing, because trying to support user interfaces that look different for every faculty member is a support nightmare, I will admit. But I think the results of allowing people to be creative in this way with technology in the classroom far exceed the challenges of support issues. And personally, I'd rather deal with the support challenges and hire some more support specialists than prevent people from being creative with technology. And then lastly here is the ability to document all learning, both formal learning happening in the classroom and informal learning, that's a little like portfolios, which I think are going to be really important as well. And particularly important that these are things that people control outside of the learning management system. I think students are going to want, learners are going to want to take their artifacts and their learning with them as they leave formal learning and go on their jobs. And also part of this in terms of having their own control over their own learning artifacts is control over their own data. Learning analytics has really opened up a lot of possibilities. It's also created some major challenges around privacy and so forth. And I think we're going to need, students are going to want to control their data in ways that we really don't have. So the final thought, I'll turn it over to Dr. Chuck. Again, I don't think the last 10, 15, 20 years of the monolithic LMS is a bad thing at all. I think if we were trying to introduce this kind of unbundling of the LMS and things like learning apps back in 2004 when Sakai launched, we would have been laughed out of the room or just ignored. Because remember, this is before Facebook, iPhones, iPads, YouTube. So it's really been this last decade and a half or so, or just even the last 10 years, that we've seen this huge change in how technology works and how it's the usability of it. And so I think we're really at the cusp right now of a major shift in learning technologies. And I think Apereo, all of us in the room, a huge opportunity to kind of seize this moment and do something pretty radical and different and innovative over the next 10 years. And with that, I'll turn it over to John.
Why don't you ask a question or two while I address the resolution of the monitor?
So, questions? Well, disagreements?
We're looking at Macintosh.
Questions? More comments? Yes.
So regarding the concept of durability that we talked about a few slides ago, and I mentioned that instructors really need to be able to bring other types of learning items into their course and different systems and so forth. That, I think, at least from some of the support that I've done with schools that I've worked with, seems to conflict with the goals of IT, which is secure, supportable. In fact, there's like a thread on the dev list right now about shutting down the LTI function in Lesson Builder. And so, we're much pretty close to, or at least I know you are, that how do you present this to IT as something that is good, and not insecure or not supportable?
Well, I should say, I'm actually part of the IT office, American office, and I work with Dialog, and I know those issues very well. And I'll not disagree with this is a huge challenge. There's probably another list of 10 huge challenges with this project. And so I think we have to face it. We have to work through how do we do something like an Apple in a way that's secure. And whatever at least let people know what's happening with data that we use in the system. But I definitely can say that I'm sure I'll get some emails from this time, but if folks really are only focused on IT security issues, why the next 10 years of learning technology, we're not going to communicate the way we have to change and free up our learners and learn in the way that they do in the future. So I don't have a great answer, except that I'm not going to let that stop me.
Maybe to add on that, so as you were talking about the way that the learning management system is critical, it made me think, so we've got sort of a spectrum of my institution where we've got HR systems and payroll systems and ERP systems that have these real high audit controls and super high security levels. And then we've got individual instructional designers and teachers with almost like zero space. And the learning management system seems to be this space where you don't need to have that super high level of security that says you have to shut down the side. But the stakes are just a little bit higher than an individual contribution to their share. And there's a tension connect that. There's a lot of freedom to actually contribute while still being essential.
I sure hope none of the people who are wanting to shut down LTI see the next talk this is talking about to get, because they'll be really wanting to shut down LTI after they see what I do with LTI.
I'll let you go. I'll just say that one of the things that I'm optimistic that we need to have an optimism. People thought that the non-administration 2 weeks ago, the police report on data issues and talk actually about, hey, maybe we need to do this in purpose and think about changing there to the last one.
So, Kurt, to answer your question, yeah, but I guess we need the property, right? We need another property owner. Because if we don't give people the choice to turn the property off, then they'll like just hate us for it. So, 1 in 10 turns it off and the other leaves it on. But I have been using lessons and LTS as a backdoor out to the real world, probably more than I should. It's really powerful. So I'm going to talk about tinkerability. Well, that's right, Josh already talked about tinkerability. I'm going to talk about maps as mashups, and I'll pull those. Oh, Josh already talked about that too. How many people were in my Sugi talk at 1 o'clock, right? So I won't rehash the entire Sugi talk, but I basically have built this Tinkerer's perfect lab, right? I can write an LTI tool like this map tool that you're seeing on the screen in a day, and I can have it in production in a day. And then I just run around through all the backdoors that I have to know, and I stick it into everything I want. And literally, if you would get a key and secret from me, you could put an LTI map in every course you want. So like, if you go to q810lonsite.com while I'm talking, you can create an account, you can go join the Sugi test, and you can stick yourself on this map. And it's like, if Shoji's telling the truth, he did this in the last session. So we can go find, is this you, Shoji? And is that where you really live? No, okay. So you took the advice of putting it like in a lake or something, so that you didn't have to read. Okay, so it's Shoji, so he's from Japan. Maybe not from this part of Japan. Because I've always met him in Tokyo. I thought you drove a long way to get to Tokyo, if that's where you actually live. So this is an LTI tool, right? And I'm trying to create a technological tinkerer's playground. And the most recent tattoo on my shoulder is the Coursera tattoo. I spent about a year and a half getting LTI in Coursera. In Coursera, they have the coolest LTI ever. It's totally powerful for the instructor. They expect the administrator to do nothing. They just give you this like naked interface. I can't show you because the secrets are not even hidden. I mean, and you just like slap in URLs, key secrets, and custom parameters. And they give you a URL, paste anywhere in your course, and then you've got yourself a thing. So I teach this course on Coursera, and basically it's allowed me to turn Coursera inside out, basically. And so basically here's Coursera, and that was a Sakai. Here's my course map in Coursera. Again, tinkering, maps. Go to map. This course launched 2 days ago and has 60,000 people in it. And I've got a map, right? Now the interesting thing is, guess who has root on the server that hauls all the data as to where all these people are? Me, the tinkerer. Okay, so that's why they're scared of LTIs, because now I can sort of like have data in my server. Now it turns out it's a University of Michigan server, so they can look at my data too. So let's see if we can find Josh's house. Let's see if Josh put himself on the map. Did you put yourself on the map, Josh? You did. Okay. So yeah, you could log in. Okay. So come back. So log into the class. Put yourself on the map, and then we'll find you when I come back. So so the next thing that happens in this Coursera class is I built a place for people to write Python programs and run them. So that's also running with LTI right there, right? So I got login, I got all the stuff, that's LTI. And so I built that in Coursera, and I built this, I built a thing called interactive Python, which allows you to type Python commands interactively, x equals 10. I mean, I literally don't print x. I don't have to ask the people at Coursera for anything, right? I mean, I just make Coursera be whatever pedagogically I want it to be and just stick links in all over the place, right? And my students still have this beautiful interface that looks like Twitter Bootstrap, and they click on stuff and it works, right? They don't even know that that's like an iframe running on a Dr. Chuck server. So that's one thing. Another thing we do is, I didn't like Coursera's peer grading. I like it for essays, but it's not good for short duration assignments. And so I have this assignment where I want everybody to install Python in my class, but how do you measure whether they install Python? So I taught them how to make screenshots, and I said, upload a screenshot of your Python running. That's how I know you installed it. So I made them this assignment, and I made a peer grader. This is peer grader. It's all configurable, really cool. Like all the text is configurable, and this one particular one asks for two screenshots: a screenshot of you showing your text editor, and a screenshot of you showing you run Python. Then you submit your thing, and then you go off and grade other students. So let's go ahead and grade a student here. Let's see. Hello there, can I help you today? That looks like they've done the first part right, and it sure looks like it's running. That's awesome. Okay, so let's give them 6 points. I mean, this is real stuff, right? I don't know the student, so I'm going to give them 6 points. Let's say 6 points. Let's say nice work. Bam, student's graded. The way this, and I can grade as many students as I have to grade. I get points for grading the first 2 students, but I don't get points after that. I can grade up to like 5 students. And this is really cool because the way it works when the assignment is due is 60,000 students. There's so many people that usually what they see is by the time they put their homework in and grade 2 other students, they have been graded by the time they get back. So in like 20 minutes, they have turned in their assignment and came back. There's no peer grading system I know of like that. Right? So I wrote that. Now this one took me a little more than a day. This was probably like a week, right? This is a whole peer grading thing. And I've got like these grade exploration things, like all this stuff. Now here's another thing that I probably shouldn't say out loud, but the University of Michigan, I have these volunteer teaching assistants. And the volunteer teaching assistants don't get the instructor role inside of Coursera, because then they can see way too much data. But I can't give them the instructor role in my outside tools. So I have this thing I call role override. So my 3 lead TAs, not all my teaching assistants, but my 3 lead TAs have been working with me for a year and a half. Bam, I turn them into instructors. So now they can fix people's grades for me, and I can sit and hang out with you people instead of fixing grades 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I changed the roles in permission, and I made my own rules on this thing. Like I said, they're going to turn LTI off as soon as they see this talking. And so all that grade maintenance stuff is there. And then I have an auto-grader that I wrote in LTI that basically asks, it says, this is your program, you're supposed to say hello world, then you run your code, and then it does a diff of the code, checks to see it, and then it sends LTI back to the server, and upgrades your grade on the server, yada yada. All LTI, all fun. And then, let's see, what else? Oh, and then I have a grade book. I don't even use their grade book. I have the person's grade book. Now I'm an instructor, so I can see like all the grades for all the students in all of these things. Search for things like Sue, she's my TA. How did Sue do on this first assignment? Right? I made this, right? I made it all. I'm tinkering, I'm fooling around, I'm exploring, I change it, my students complain. So I'll show you something I changed. Come on. So I have this flag option. So if you, these are the grades for the other students, and it tells how many points you get. 6 is the maximum number of points. And if you don't like this grade, you hit the flag button and complain to the teacher, and then the teacher goes and looks at it. Well, it used to be that it would show you all the points of all the students who had graded you, right? Like this probably was less than 6. So someone would say 6 points and 5 points, and it would say your overall score is 6, but they would still be pissed that someone would give them 5 points, even if it didn't affect the grade. They were flagging me, like, I want you to go thrash this person because I deserve perfect. So then I, on a Sunday afternoon, I'm like, what I'll do is I'll hide the lower grades. So I just don't show you the actual points, but I do show the comments from the students who gave you something that didn't contribute to your grade because it's lower. It shows you the highest score, but then stops as soon as the score drops below the highest score. So somebody gave you 6 points, and then the students were mad that that was the previous session. They don't even know now. But that's the kind of thing where you learn something as a teacher, like don't show them the other points because they complain continuously, and then your inbox fills up with student complaints. So tinker, just put that baby in. So let's see. Let's go back and see if Josh is on the map. Are you on the map, Josh? Okay, so let's zoom in. You put yourself in the Hudson River? You just put yourself in a town. I tell people like put themselves in a bar, right? If they don't want to. Up the river, okay. Is that it? That's not you? Oh, Kipsy, okay. Did you choose to see reveal information? Yeah, if you click on your red icon, you can choose to reveal information. So there you go. Did you put yourself at the campus? Or is that where you really live? Okay. See, I put myself, I put you in the river. That way you're signaling that it's not really where you live, right? But that's okay. Or you can put yourself in a bar, or your favorite restaurant. I sometimes put myself in a favorite restaurant. What's that? Restaurant idea? Okay, oh, you move yourself. Okay, so again, you see the mashup. See all the LTI. And that's cool. And I did all that in my Coursera class. Then I have this other class where I teach PHP and MySQL to 120 students a semester. And guess what I teach them how to do? I teach them how to make teaching and learning tools using the framework. So assignments are how to build a chat tool. Assignments are all these things. How to build a wisdom of crowd guessing tool. And then, for more redundancy on this, I actually use the tools in the class to grade, right? So I use the peer grading and the auto grader and all that stuff I use in my class. And so here's Sakai, and I built this one thing for my Coursera class, and it turned out it was really useful in my Sakai class because I can save a lot of time for all my students. Again, tinkering, fooling around. Okay, so that's and this is the name of the software. It's named Suki, and it's loaded with tools, and like here's the student assignment. It's a little JSON-based chat gadget, and this is like their 4th assignment, and then there is a wisdom of crowd application where you're supposed to make guesses and stuff like that. Oops, that looks like a bug. Oh, that's okay, I'll fix that bug. So this is like a little developer environment that lets you hack these tools up in a hurry and then deploy them to a production server. And you can switch between the student view and the teacher view and the anonymous view of the thing. So this tool doesn't like being called anonymously. That's pretty cool. At least it's not a trace tag. So this is my tool, and so that's really cool. I write these things, I test them real quick. This is all set up for my students, right? My students, this is their environment for the second half of my PHP class. Is they're working in my little framework because I want them to work in something complex. And so this is the last thing that I will show you. Because I own this, I throw Google Analytics into everything. So I know page views, time of day, gender, all kinds of stuff. That's my data, right? It's not even my university's data, it's my data. I don't know if I told you some of the things that I learned. I'm really interested in, because this is a technology class, I'm really interested in gender technology. Wrong thing. Oh, there you go. So it turns out that I've been staring at this gender data, and I couldn't see any patterns. But it turns out there's one data, so I have one setup. 30% of my students are female, and on most days, 25% of the activity is women, and on one day a week, 50% of the activity is women. That's just because I had stared at this data long. Anybody guess what day of the week it is that women's participation in a technology class doubles? Does your analytics ask that question right away? You might want. It's Sunday. Women's participation in my class doubles on Sundays. Just because I have the data and I stared at it so long. This gender, this is Google Analytics gender. So, I will stop now and we can have questions. I just wanted to show you a whole bunch of crazy examples of what a crazy tinkering guy does, in addition to teaching 100 new crazy tinkerers every semester. Eventually, I want to make a MOOC on how to write tools to extend your MOOC. That'd be crazy. Just so crazy that it might work.
No, great, thanks, Lachlan. That's great. I think, for me, it's facilitating that tinkering for everybody who's using something, so not just we have a few minutes, and obviously we could chat as we just get to your questions, comments.
So I'm thinking about the tinkering, and I'm thinking about change over to become, and how learning is going to occur. And I'm just wondering how profoundly that changes forward faculty. Because even if you're in a support mechanism, the faculty member role in order to do these types of things is no longer a very traditional model, and we're already seeing that move now, we're seeing that in the peer so but it also becomes a knowledge in other areas that help them foster that creativity. How do you see us getting that message out to faculty about understanding this transformation of their role from the didactic, which still the LMS does, to the enabler?
Yeah, I love the way you put that, and I think you're exactly right. The question is really sort of where does the LMS go, and how do we teach faculty, and how do we move faculty forward into this great new world in a way that it's not so scary that they're just pulled back. So I think that there's two things. One is sort of the strategic direction about an LMS like Sakai. I think has to be informed by this, and is already being informed by this, where we just don't need new features in this product. We don't. We got new features every 30 seconds if we want. And so it means that what we need to do is really make a great product that lays the foundation for this future world, whether it be web services, distributed capabilities, better LTI, better standards for analytics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Not saying, holy mackerel, we need a polling tool, right? I mean, years ago we needed a polling tool, and we have a polling tool. But today, you would never make a polling tool. You're like, why would you make a polling tool? It's just like, put the thing on a thingy and make a polling tool somewhere else. And we won't even notice that if you do it right, you won't even notice that it's something else. And so it means that we got to make a really awesome piece of software to do the hard stuff still that really is not going to move as fast as you think. So that's the first thing. Strategically, LMSs need to solidify and become awesome in terms of their quality, their performance, and everything. And you see that already in the Sakai 10 and Sakai 11 roadmap. Things like performance start to come to the fore, and better web services come to the fore rather than new feature, new feature, new feature. We're actually taking stuff out in 11, right, where there'll be fewer things in. And then the other question is about the faculty. And I think we just got to get the faculty, and I don't think it's going to be that hard to believe that they can change the system, right? I mean, they just don't believe. They feel like they're constrained, and they have to wait a year for anything to change, or 2 years for anything to change. So they're just not habituated to the point where they dream, right? I dream. I sit on a Sunday and stare at these clouds and go like, oh, wait a second, if I added an email thing to that, then that would make it faster. Wouldn't that be cool? So I dream continuously about how I would change teaching and learning. And I don't think the average faculty member using LMSs for the past 15 years has any dreams left.
I'll add to that here and say that I think if we can facilitate this type of thing, we could actually find that a lot of the challenges I face in my office in academic technology, convincing faculty that technology can change how they teach in really innovative ways. Because there's just going to be this peer-to-peer sharing across faculty, basically. Because they're the ones who are going to be creating these cool apps. They're the ones who can say, oh, we took this step and matched up with this, so we allow them to teach in a bigger way. And they'll go share that with the audience. Part of the problem that we face today is it's me coming out and saying, hey, I'm an academic technology, and I can help you learn this, use this learning methods. It's awesome. And that's just not going to cut it. The fact that I built this app, look what it can do in my classroom. It can do the same thing in your classroom too. That's going to be much easier to sell.
And I think that the key to any of these things is, it's like we're a startup again, right? It's like instructional technologists and IT folks on campuses. They're like in a startup. All you need in a startup is a couple of referenceable customers, right? And so you got to make sure that the first few things are success. And we need to help each other to make sure that each school that tries something crazy like this is successful. Because you could imagine 5 years from now, we would have more people working on this stuff than they are today, right? We have some number of people kind of propping up an LMS system and keeping it running. Well, hopefully that'll get easier. That'll free up some people. But then the faculty be like, these are awesome people, and they help me progress my pedagogy, and they're quick as heck, and they can seem to make magic, and it's wonderful. Let's vote to have more of those people. Right? Let's go to the faculty senate and say we need 40 more people instead of like 4 people or 2 people or 1 people. So I think it's an exciting time, and it's the time where we've always dreamed that pedagogy could drive what we do at places like this. And I think we're starting to touch it. And I think we'll see resources flow to that if we give them some value.
Other questions? Questions, comments?
Start by making a map for them. They love this. I didn't make the map because Josh had a map. We didn't coordinate on a map.
I was quite worried if we had coordinated development.
Yeah, because everybody does a map.
So I think we'll wrap up. We're over a little time. I would say that maybe this follow up, maybe Chuck and I will get from this sort of this discussion points and continue this kind of dialogue following the content.
And we might